All right, this is Penny Sansevieri and Paula Kraft, and we are back talking about Goodreads groups. So this is the part 2 of our Goodreads series, and we want to talk about Goodreads groups, and in particular, Paula. I mean, I don't want to just talk about so the kind of groups that people should join. Are there certain groups that are mandatory? How many people? I mean, how much? What should you do on these groups? So why don't you get started? First off, how many groups should a person join?
Well, I think you definitely, if you're going to be active, I think realistically, an author could possibly be active in maybe 2 to 4 groups. I think once you get beyond that, you really have to ask yourself, how much time are you really spending on Goodreads, and do you have that kind of time available? If you do, great. I would say 2 to 4, although there may be some secondary groups that you might want to consider joining simply because the opportunities it provides you will make it worth your while. And what I mean in particular are the groups that exist for giveaways. They actually have 3 or 4 groups that are specifically for book giveaways. So it's worth becoming a member of the group to have the right to post when you've got a book available. Beyond that, you want to basically look mostly starting with genre, see what's available in your genre, and then branch out from there. But in Christina's groups, she's with Goodreads Authors Readers, which is one of the largest and most active groups. And since it is all about connecting readers with Goodreads authors, I think it's a great place for authors to get their feet wet.
Okay. How okay, so there are a lot of groups. We actually started one for Christina Ask the Publicist, which when you go back, once we take a look at this and we can sort of look at that. But so authors readers, obviously that's a great group. How do you know if a group is really worth it to join? Because anybody can start a group. Obviously you want to have, and some of these groups have a huge number of people that have joined them, but still for whatever reason may not be good for the author. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think this is where an author really has to do the homework and actually visit each group and not only look at the number of members, but then you scroll down and you look at what is going on. Is there activity? Has there been activity on a regular basis? And so you can see on this particular group, there is a lot of current activity. And of course, it starts with a welcome. And so the first thing you want to do also is just read the rule clear on what their posting rules are so you don't get yourself in trouble. But then also when in groups, look at the different categories and see if there's anything there that fits you. Goodreads Author Readers is broken down by genre, so this is one of the reasons why it's valuable to so many people because you can actually jump in. But you'll see that some genres are more active than others, and that will be another heads up as to whether this can work for you. For example, if you're a fantasy author, that's a big threat. It's going to be a good place. General fiction, another one, historical fiction. So you do have to take the time to look at the groups, but I think this is also valuable too because you can click on some of the discussions and see what the general tone is. Is it a friendly site? Is it a site where people really like to share information and ideas? Or is it a site where people get a little bit more combative? If that's really not your speed, you'd rather know before you join and get too involved what the general tone is and what's tolerated in that particular group.
Okay. Yeah, I think the combative groups, and I think that there are quite a number of them. I personally feel like that's really just a waste of, it's a waste of my time because I don't know that complaining about not getting, not getting enough attention or not getting enough reviews is necessarily a productive way to spend anybody's time.
Exactly. And I also, there are some people on Goodreads like being on the site so that they can complain about specific books and authors. There's really nothing that you can do about it, but my feeling is you probably don't want to actually see that. So if that is the tone of the group, don't join, stay away from it, just don't even go there.
Yeah. So 2 or 3 groups. I mean, what do you think what do you think is a good number for people to have to start off with?
Yeah, I think two or three because when you think about doing the homework and getting familiar with the rules of each group and the general tone of each group, I think that if you are planning on having a life and writing more books and so forth, you do need to keep your time on Goodreads manageable. And the smaller number of groups you're involved in, the easier it is to kind of get to know some people and really make the kind of connections that like Goodreads is built for. It's better to be more heavily involved in two groups than to try to spread yourself thin over a half a dozen. You'll get more out of those two groups when you're really, really active, and you'll be able to build some really dedicated fans.
Yeah, I agree with you because I think that if you look on, like on Christina's group page, I think there's a ton of groups that, at some point we may want to just sort of go through that and see whether or not it makes a lot of sense. I think that, like giveaways and contests and book giveaways and things, and free book giveaway, I mean, I think all those sort of seemed good. It's like it seemed like a good idea at the time, but now trying to keep up with that. And I will tell you that just to experiment, I've tried joining a lot of groups, and this is the other thing I want to chat with you about. It's really hard sometimes to keep up with the discussion. So can you give us some tips on how to keep up with the discussion on these groups, and how do you think, because the way that Goodreads sort of separates out the discussion, it's not always easy to read.
No, it's really not. It does take some practice. I think Goodreads is kind of a funny site that way. It's not the most user friendly or intuitive
Yeah.
site. But I also think that the best way to feel sane about it is to manage your time on Goodreads and check in when you're ready to do so, and then go directly to the group and the topics that you're interested in. I do the same thing for the groups I'm active in, and I just look for whatever the latest discussion is and just start from there. I don't really pay attention to the notifications or anything because they can really make you crazy. I mean, there are days when you have a lot of people talking and it's too much to keep up with. So my recommendation is once you know where you want to be active, figure out where it is. Is it, for example, are you a mystery writer and you're going to be active in the mystery thriller thread? Then only worry about that and check in with us sometime and scroll through what's going on. It may be that some days you're not going to really have much to say, and there'll be other days when you see some discussions and you jump in. I think one of the keys, though, is managing that time so that you don't end up feeling overwhelmed or you suddenly realize that 2 hours of your life have been spent and you needed to get other things done. So even if you have to set a timer, you will find as you get more familiar with the group and the people in it, it'll be a lot easier to get part of ongoing discussion.
Yeah, and that's why suggesting that two groups as a start is a really good idea, because you want to be active, but you don't, I mean, it's very easy to go from active to completely overwhelmed.
Exactly. And I think, too, people have to understand that in a sense there can be a lot of chatter. These discussions can go on for several days, if not longer. And so the nice thing is that even if the discussion started Monday and you're not checking in until Wednesday, there's still probably plenty of opportunity for you to jump in and be involved in it because people will follow it for a set period of time. I think there's a little more patience on Goodreads that way, and I think that the active users really start for themselves to figure out where they want to stay focused and only follow certain discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about okay, so let's talk about the kind of activity to become a Goodreads power user. And then maybe in this segment or in the final segment that we do, let's talk a little bit more about how to promote your Goodreads giveaway and what are some good ideas to do with that. But so to become a Goodreads power user, how active do you need to be just generally on the Goodreads site? So, reviews and your bookshelf and and yada yada and all that stuff.
Right, and the reviews, of course, are a little harder to control, but to become
Yeah.
a power user, one of the ways to get more reviews is to make connections on the site. So one of the ways you want to use the site wisely is to get active in groups and find people that you can friend. Because once you start making more friends, you've got a wider base of people, and hopefully a good number of them are adding your book to their shelves where it's getting exposed to their friends. And again, there's that ripple effect where your book is getting more exposure, and that's what you're looking for. But I think that the active Goodreads users also are looking for authors to actually care about the site. So they're interested in seeing that you have your own bookshelf and you are reading and reading books, and that you write some reviews for some of the books that you enjoy. They're also looking for you to be part of the general discussions that are on the site and not just always be asking people for reviews or promoting something that you're doing. Because obviously those opportunities exist for authors, but the site is about being social. It's about sharing love of books. And so that's one of the things that authors really want to think about is what can they do with your profile, you get all these opportunities to really make yourself stand out because you can add quizzes, you can add your favorite quotes, you can indicate what other writers influence you. So there's just all these ways to really stand out and personalize your profile so that as you branch out and make friends, people will see that you're authentic. You're not just there trying to hit people up every 5 minutes for a review.
Yeah, absolutely. So doing things like also doing things like adding books to your bookshelf. So books that you want to read. So adding books to your bookshelf and making that um, making that part of your weekly thing, I think helps to become a power user. Rating books. So you can rate books and then you can also review books. And you don't necessarily have to do both, right?
Correct. You don't have to do both. It's sometimes easier to just give the rating. I would say at a bare minimum, at least rate the books. But if there are some books you feel particularly strongly about, you don't have to write a long review, but just long enough to indicate why this book means something to you. What was it specifically, and give a couple of examples. Again, it's a way to really show people who you are. And on social media, that's what people are looking for. They're looking to make connections. And one of the best ways to make connections is for people to understand the little bar and what you're all about.
Okay. So doing the reviews. I mean, because I think that if you want more reviews, you also have to give more reviews. So that's kind of, I think that's also really important. And many books have really taken off because of the activity that the author did on Goodreads, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's really amazing how, as you get more active on Goodreads, you get discovered. I mean, I have to admit that whatever I do on Goodreads, I predominantly read and review books, and I participate in one particular group fairly heavily. But that really has been amazing exposure. I get a lot of new friend requests, and it's been really interesting to see how if you just focus on your use of the site and don't make it all about you, people will find you because they really want to make those connections.
Well, and that's a really great thing that you say, because I want to sort of stop you there, because you have, I mean, I don't know how many groups that you personally belong to, but I know that you have one group that you are very, very active with. And you have really you've built yourself on this site, where I presume that people are now pitching you and, all this other stuff. And you're not an author. I mean, we're working together and you're pitching our authors, things like that. But you've built quite a credibility for yourself on the site, even just using like one group.
Yeah, it's really pretty amazing. I belong to the Tudor Book Blog group, which sort of grew up out of some discussions on Facebook, actually, because people realized that Goodreads would be the perfect place for us to read books together. And so essentially, every couple of months, we're reading a new book, and we all fit between fiction and nonfiction. But I think for somebody who helps authors promote books, there's a lot of credibility in actually being part of the book world and showing people your own interest in books. And it's pretty interesting too on a site like Goodreads. It's not unusual for someone you don't know to contact you just based on a rating or a review that you gave a book. They may see something that you've reviewed that they haven't read yet and they would like more feedback from you. They may just want to chat because they love the book too.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to show your own love of books on a site like Goodreads because it will help get noticed by a lot of people who share those same interests.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's click on a group. If you can click on any one of these groups, because I just want to show everybody sort of what the discussion looks like. And one of the things that you do have to be sure that you do whenever you have whenever you're looking at these discussions is Goodreads doesn't automatically filter it newest to oldest. A lot of times it's oldest to newest. Is that true?
It can be, yeah. I mean, sometimes you find yourself sort of wading through, like, what on earth just happened
Oh, I
in this
know.
group?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a good group. I mean, this is kind of an interesting group. I'm not sure that I would necessarily um, always have this particular author remain a member of it because some of it's really active and some of it really isn't active. So it's a spotting in a way.
Yeah, well, I think it's also indicative of how in some of the groups conversations can ebb and flow because even in the group I'm really active in, people's lives can catch up to them. So, for example, a book that was being read around Christmas, the discussion just totally petered out.
Yeah.
And it was simply because people were so busy. Now, of course, we're past the holidays, and so the book we're reading now is picking up a little bit more steam. But of course, when you're trying to read a book together at the same time, I mean, I finished the book within a week. We still have people that are still not even quite halfway through. So the discussion is sort of all over the place.
Yeah.
And that's something that you have to get used to because, again, some users may actually want to be on the site every day. You might get some who are only there once a week, and then you get others who are less frequent than that.
Yeah, absolutely. So click on that first Facebook group where we get author reviews, and just kind of click on that one. And I just want to show everybody, if you're not familiar with with Goodreads groups, this is kind of what you're looking at. So you've got this discussion where the last conversation was 6 hours ago. So it's probably a pretty active group, provided that was not the only discussion that happened in the last, week or so. Now this one, okay, now this site, of course, is going to prove me to be a liar. So now this one is newest to, or is it newest to oldest? No, it's not actually.
No, I don't think it is.
Yeah, it's not. So you have to go up and click the newest. And I don't know why Goodreads does this.
It's funny. It doesn't want me to click the newest in this particular group.
Oh, so maybe the discussion is just it's probably not that long then. There's only 32 messages. So yeah, so it's all on one page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, it's just something to watch out for because again, it may be a little confusing at first. Part of it is Goodreads. I mean, I do think that Goodreads is a site where you have to be willing to click around a little bit. You just have to be patient because it is not the most user-friendly site that's out there. There's a lot of value to being active on it, but it definitely takes a little bit of a learning curve, and I think people just need to go in with that understanding and then just click around and get used to how it's set up. And the more you use it, the easier it will become.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is part of this is a group of people and they're wanting to start a Facebook page. And I think that's a great idea to get them reviews on Amazon. I mean, I think that this is part of what I love about Goodreads so much is that you can get a whole bunch of readers who just really want to support each other and start this Facebook group. Now, who knows, because these groups, as we know, are a lot of work. Who knows if this Facebook group will actually succeed, if everybody's going to get the reviews, because at some point then everybody has to be reading these books, or at least 25 people do, in order to get those reviews. But, I mean, it could end up being something, you could end up being something really good.
Exactly. And it's nice that Goodreads, there is respect for the fact that authors do want to get their books reviewed, and the readers understand that, and they're often happy to be a part of that process. So that's another part of why Goodreads can be so effective when you make the connections. Just having yourself on there is not enough, though. You do have to take it to that next level and be active on the site.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's bookmark it here, and then we'll spend a couple more minutes just in the next segment just talking about the Goodreads giveaway, because I know we talked about it. We talked about the numbers, but just walk us through sort of how to set it up. We'll look at how to set it up and how to promote it. So thank you so much for this segment on Goodreads groups. And next up, we're going to talk about the Goodreads giveaway. Thank you so much for tuning in.